UConn Nation, welcome into a special edition of Huskies All Access. I'm Chris Jones, and as you can see via Zoom, we're with UConn Athletic Director David Benedict. David, thanks so much for the time. How have you been doing during this crazy time period?
Chris, hey, it's good to be with you, and obviously good to have an opportunity to communicate with our fans and the general state and community, as well as our student athletes. But look, it's an unprecedented time. We're all having to, both personally and professionally, manage things that frankly, I'm not sure anyone in this country has ever had to manage before. So we're all doing our best. I think from a communication standpoint, trying to stay in touch with people, trying to communicate the best we possibly can. Don't necessarily have all the answers. There's some things that we'll probably talk about today that we just don't know yet. And unfortunately, we don't have a crystal ball. But I think communication, staying in touch and engage with people is probably the most important thing, both on a personal level with our friends and family, as well as professionally.
So we've got some great questions from fans that sent them in the last couple of days. But first, I know me and you just want to kind of thank our sponsors first. I just want to make sure I touch on all of them: Cox, Wells Fargo, KeyBank, United Healthcare, Harvard Pilgrim, Dunkin', Bears Barbecue, National Guard, and of course, UConn Health. These partners have contributed up to $250 million in relief funds. And David, that's just awesome to hear, especially in this difficult time.
Yeah. Hey, look, it makes you proud to be associated with those companies. This is a difficult time for everybody, but as we all know, small companies especially, this is a challenging time. And so for those companies that are sponsors of UConn Athletics to be supportive at this time of great need is really a special thing for people to be doing. I know individually people are doing a lot of things to help the general community and the first responders, but certainly it makes me proud to be associated with them.
All right, so let's rewind a couple weeks, which seems like a couple months ago, when you were at the American Athletic Championship for the men's basketball team. Take me through when you first kind of heard COVID-19 was on your radar, how it was going to affect the possible tournament, and then how it rapidly progressed to shutting down basically the entire sports world.
Yeah, it's hard to put my finger on the first day or time or instance that I heard about COVID-19. Obviously, when the first reported case came about in this country, it certainly began to become more real. And, I remember having a conversation with some coaches saying that, I told my wife to go out and start to buy some things because I just believed that, this was going to, at the time, there was no cases, I believe, east of the Mississippi. And I don't think that there was any rationale for that. It just hadn't moved east yet that far. So look, there was definitely an identification that this was going to impact us at some point in time. But certainly at that point in time, it wasn't to the grand scale, obviously, that it is now. And I don't think anyone was necessarily talking in those types of terms. But yeah, things became really real for us when we were in Dallas and the decision was made to cancel the American Athletic Men's Basketball Conference Tournament, and then shortly thereafter, all of the spring sports. But yeah, it's been a challenging time for our student athletes, especially. Obviously, our coaches. There's kids that have worked their entire careers to get to a place where you're competing for a conference championship or the right to play and compete for a national championship, and to have that stripped away so suddenly, and not just to have that take place, but also be wrapped up into a pandemic that's impacting so many people personally in really tragic ways. It's a lot to take in for young men and women.
Let's briefly talk a little bit about the spring sports that were at the start of their season, and you can also touch on just basketball and hockey as well. We still had a men's conference tournament for hockey that I know Coach Cav and their guys thought they could make a run. Obviously, men's basketball thought they could make a run in their final American Athletic Conference championship, and then women's basketball, we know, making their runs to Final Fours. But specifically for spring sports, softball was off to a phenomenal start under Laura Valentino in her first year. Lacrosse was having a great season to start, and baseball was just starting to hit its stride, 5-game win streak when the season was called off.
Yeah, it was, a lot of great feedback, a lot of good vibes around the spring sports as we really got off to a good start. But, as you mentioned, some of the winter sports, women's hockey, who actually got to finish their conference championship, played for a championship, which was a great ending. Although they didn't win the conference championship, they played for it, which they outperformed the expectations that they had at the beginning of the season. So really excited for them. Men's ice hockey was playing probably as good as ice hockey as anybody in Hockey East going into the tournament. So certainly we had high hopes for how that was going to finish up for the men's ice hockey team. And then, women's basketball, obviously a lot of conversation around their season this year. But ultimately, look, they lost to 3 of the top teams in the country. I don't think there's anyone else in the country that played collectively those 3 teams like we did. There's certainly no shame in losing to 3 of the top 5 teams in the country, the way things finished. And, ultimately, who knows what would have happened in the NCAAs. I certainly wouldn't put it past our program to have, upset, which we don't use that word with our women's basketball program very often, upsetting teams. But I think had we been playing our best basketball, we were capable of beating anyone in the country. And, no one will ever get to know who was going to be ultimately crowned the national champion that year. But I do recall the last 3 years going into the tournament being expected to potentially win the national championship and not having won it. So there's always a chance that there can be upsets, and I wouldn't have put anything past Coach Oriema in our women's program. And men's basketball had another year in which we made progress in kind of rebuilding that program to a place where we expect to be competitive. First winning season since I've been here. So that was fun to see. And, it was nice to see Christian Vital have a great season, and Alterique Gilbert have a really good season. And so, again, progress, and looking forward to the future of that program. And then, baseball, we expect great things from our baseball program. Early on, got some wins against top 5 teams in the country. And, again, to compete at that level when you haven't really practiced outside at all is really difficult. And it just speaks to volumes about Coach Penders and the program he's built. And then Laura Valentino, off to a great start in her first year. Would have been really exciting to kind of see how the season would have turned out, but proud of those kids making that transition. And then lacrosse, Katie, that program was off to a good start very early on, but certainly hopeful that they would have had a great season. So yeah, proud of the way they started, and we'll be excited for them to see them back on the fields next year.
The Division I Council met on Monday, and we're able to make some determinations in terms of eligibility and whatnot. Can you just take us through some of the findings from yesterday?
Yeah, the biggest result is that the spring sports, basically all of the student athletes are being granted another year of eligibility and competition. And so the way we typically talk about eligibility for college student athletes is you have 5 years to complete 4 years of competition. And so now you really, for some kids, you're introducing a 6-year. For other kids that haven't necessarily used a redshirt year, there's really no benefit. They still have 5 years to compete for. But ultimately, it's just really giving every student athlete the opportunity to have 4 years of competition within now potentially a 6-year period of time. The challenge for everybody around the country is Now that's been approved, the challenge will be, well, how do you fund it? And as we all know, and certainly people that are familiar with UConn, the university already supports the athletic department at a significant level. And this would just be additional cost for the university and the athletics department to subsidize. So we're going through the process of really just identifying, okay, for our seniors, those of you that are graduating, how many of you would consider even coming back to play that additional year? And so we're going through the process. What a lot of people probably don't realize is a lot of those spring sports, most of them are what we refer to as equivalency sports. They're not head count sports. In a head count sport, you're getting a full scholarship. In equivalency sports, you're getting a partial scholarship of some percentage. It doesn't mean you can't get up to a full scholarship, but most of your student athletes in these spring sports are equivalency, so they're getting a portion, and that's going to impact them too. So the decision to come back is going to have a financial impact both on the university and our athletics program, as well as these individuals, because most of them are going to be paying for a portion of that year.
All right, let's get to some fan questions from Twitter and from Instagram. First, we're going to start from the Moose on Twitter, who asked, what kinds of things can fans do to help UConn student athletes now and when they get back out onto the field?
Generally speaking, just being supportive of the challenges that they're going through. And we're trying to do everything we can to support our student athletes in this time. As we're all dealing with the changes to our daily routine, isolation can be very difficult. And so we're trying to do everything we can to keep our student athletes, our coaches, our staff engaged in ways like we're doing right now through this Zoom interview. And so we've been doing WebExes and Zooms and all these different things and phone calls to try to keep people engaged, to communicate. But number one, just be supportive of what everyone's going through. And then, look, I just talked about we're going to have great financial need. And look, I appreciate and understand people are going through trying circumstances. And certainly we don't expect people to put UConn before their own personal needs. But we're going to need people to continue to support, if they can, this great athletics program and all of our 650 plus student athletes.
David, how have you been staying in touch with your coaches, your staff, and how is UConn supporting the student athletes, staying in touch with them, supporting them?
Yeah, it's been, I don't want to say it's been challenging, because fortunately we live at a time where technology is so advanced that we have opportunities to do things like we're doing right now. So, we're trying to communicate the best we possibly can, trying to engage our student athletes. Our academic support team is in communication and is providing the same type of support to our student athletes that they were when they were on campus. We're just utilizing technology to do it. Our sports medicine team is actually doing therapy sessions with our student athletes via Zoom or WebEx, just like we're doing now. And some of those things can happen without the need of a physical therapist or to be on hand. So we're doing those types of things. Obviously, our strength and conditioning coaches are providing optional workouts and having meetings and conversations. And obviously, our coaches are keeping in contact on a regular basis. So there's a lot of communication going on, maybe more than there actually is on a day-to-day when you're on campus, because of the heightened sensitivity to not having everyone together. So we're doing the best we can. I was actually on a WebEx last night with our SAC, which is our Student Athlete Advisory Council. It's really leadership of all of our athletic programs. So there's a representative from each team. And we had a great conversation and dialogue, and just, again, doing the best we can to answer questions and communicate. We have this situation right now where, because the university didn't make the decision prior to a lot of our students leaving for spring break, to the fact that they weren't going to be returning. We have a lot of people that have all of their belongings on campuses in residence halls. So there's a lot of concern and uncertainty with that. So just answering those kinds of questions and trying to put our student athletes at ease as much as we possibly can is really critical.
A question from our friend Noam Watt of UCTV. He asks if student tickets will once again be free next year.
No, and that's a great question. We were very fortunate to be able to make that change this past year. We certainly plan on maintaining that program and providing students free tickets. And part of the rationale, and I want to make sure that we emphasize this, is the students we're already receiving money through the general university fee. They refer to it as GUF. That students pay into. So we're attributing the money that we already receive from students to cover the cost of those tickets, as opposed to asking them to purchase those tickets on top of the fee. But look, the university is going through a unprecedented time. We don't know the overall impact financially that all of this is going to have on the university. So, I can't say that this is forever, but certainly it's our plan to continue with that program.
Ian and Bill both ask about construction projects, specifically timetable for the start of construction for softball and hockey, and if Maroney Stadium and RZA Performance Center will still be progressing here throughout the late spring and summer.
Yeah, we've waited so long for these facilities to come online, and obviously this past Sunday was supposed to be the opening of Elliott Ballpark, and most people that follow us obviously have seen the progress on that facility, and it's just a beautiful facility. Can't thank the Elliotts enough, but I should say all the people that supported that project, but we just don't know. I mean, there continues to be decisions being made at the state level, at the federal level, that determine whether or not construction can continue to move forward. Right now, construction is taking place, and specifically as it relates to softball, based on the decisions that were made relative to spring sports, we actually thought we were going to be able to get a jump start on that facility because we're not playing. And so we didn't expect to be able to start construction on that facility probably until June. But now we have a chance, assuming that construction will be allowed to continue, we've got a chance to start earlier on that project. And again, if we're allowed, I don't see any challenges to making sure that the new soccer facility, the new softball facility will be online as expected. But again, we're living in uncertain times right now, and we'll just have to take it day by day.
There's been a really positive response in terms of the makeup of the UConn football schedule for this year and upcoming years. Can you talk a little bit about the process of that and how it seems like the team has benefited from this move to independence?
Well, look, everyone, has their right to an opinion as to, what they think the impact will be on football. And some of this, we won't know for a while. But I am happy with the results. Certainly, there was some risk that we took in making the decision that we made to move all of our programs outside of football and rowing to the Big East. But I was really confident that the results were going to be positive, and so far so good. The feedback that I've gotten from fans has been fantastic. It's not to say that there's not people out there that are unhappy about it still, but I can tell you that the number of people that have come up to me and have really shown excitement about the future scheduling has been, I guess, just so much more significant. And it's happening on a regular basis. I haven't seen, frankly, the excitement about our scheduling prior to this year. And so the number of people that have told me they're going to the Ole Miss game next year, which, assuming we play football next year, because that is something that people are talking about. But assuming we go, I'm not sure where everyone's going to get the tickets, because it's been, hundreds and hundreds of people that have said, hey, I've got a group of 10 people that we're going to be partying in the Grove. And so, obviously really excited about people's interest and excitement about the schedule. But look, we've had a lot of support from other institutions that have been willing to play us. We have a great brand. We have a great facility that people feel comfortable coming to play with. We're easy to get to, and we're in close proximity to New York, which has been very advantageous. So we're excited about it and looking forward to the start of independent football.
Last time you were asked publicly, you said progress was being made towards the TV deal with football. Do we have any updates at this point?
We're really just trying to finalize things, and so we're going to be on TV. We feel very good about the future and how that's moving forward, and so I'm looking forward to announcing something soon.
With UConn returning to the Big East next year, are there going to be any throwback uniforms or having more throwback merchandise for sale?
Chris, I'm outside and it's getting a little cold, so I'm going to put on a little hat here. But look, we're obviously excited about all the things that going back to the Big East will bring about. And the collective UConn Nation has so many fond memories of lots of different aspects of our time in the Big East and being an original member. There's an individual who I won't name names here, but they told me this story that they created this fictitious committee that they were like the Big East tournament committee, and they actually had apparel made up and clothes and badges, and they literally walked around the tournament like they were some official committee, and they got access to things. I mean, it's pretty amazing. So look, throwback uniforms is something, our old Husky logo, those are things that the fans want. Those are things that I think you do at the appropriate times. And yeah, we're gonna make sure we, whenever we can, give the fans what they want.
And finally, just to kind of wrap up with the Big East as well, we obviously talk about basketball and reminisce about that, but can you talk about the impacts, the benefits for all the other sports as well?
Well, we talk a lot about student athlete welfare in college athletics, and I think a lot of times people use student athlete welfare as kind of an excuse or a rationale for doing things certain ways. But I can tell you that, having experienced the demands of traveling within the American Athletic Conference, and certainly, look, this isn't exclusive to UConn. There are a lot of universities and a lot of student athletes that are being asked to travel all over the country to compete, and it's very demanding. And when you talk about the travel and competition and practice and the academic side of things, I would tell you that it's very difficult to manage. And so there is, without question, that rejoining a conference that is much more regionally centric and geographically appropriate, while it's great for the fans, it's really going to be great for our student athletes. We didn't really have any bus trips within our conference. I mean, obviously Temple was the closest school. There are some sports that financially it made sense for them to bus, but we're going to have multiple bus trips now, and some bus trips that, like Providence and Seton Hall, that are really close. Seton Hall, sometimes you can hit traffic, so it may take a little bit longer, but I'm excited from that standpoint, that it is going to be better for our student athlete from a welfare standpoint. And then, look, a lot of our student athletes come from the New England and Northeast region, and they grew up watching UConn or being familiar with these rivalries. And so there is a lot of talk within our student athlete body of being excited about going back and playing the Georgetowns and the Providences and the St. John's and the Seton Halls and the Villanovas. So to see that level of interest within our student athlete cohort as well as our fan base is really exciting.
Awesome. Well, David, thank you so much. This was great. Stay safe. Enjoy your family during this time. And hopefully we can talk in person instead of doing Zoom next time we chat.
Yeah, hey, I hope so. But just a message to the fans and the greater community, UConn Nation, do your best to follow the guidelines of the CDC and your state and local governments as well as the federal government. It's really important. We need to all do our part here, do it together, operate as a team, and hopefully we'll be able to get back to normal life as soon as possible. Thanks a lot, and go Huskies.
Thank you again to all our sponsors for their continued support of UConn Athletics. Please consider supporting our local restaurant partners who are continuing to serve Husky fans across the state during these unprecedented times.